So some of America's frontline doctors had a white coat summit in Washington, D.C. to talk about the things they disagreed with the media and how the government's been handling the pandemic. It was blowing up on Facebook with over 14 million views until Facebook took it down. And then President Trump actually shared the video on his Twitter account. And then Twitter took it down. So what's going on? Why did they do it? And what were the doctors actually saying? Well, it looks like New York Times journalist Kevin Roose was talking about it. And then one of the Facebook communications guys, Andy Stone, said, yes, we removed it for sharing false information about cures and treatments for COVID-19. First, let's just take a quick look at his Twitter. He says he's the alumni from House Majority PAC, which is a Democratic Party PAC working for Democrats. Senator Boxer, a former Democrat. The DCCC, committed to electing, you guessed it, Democrats to the House of Representatives, and Jerry McNerney, of course, a Democrat. Just pointing that out, I'm sure there's no political bias here. So he said he removed it from Facebook for sharing false information about cures and treatments. If you can find the video, watch it for yourself and you can see what you think of it, but I actually listened to the whole thing before they deleted it on Twitter, and I took notes before they deleted it. Some things that stuck out to me is one of the doctors said that they have a web of fear and they're spreading so much fear. Dr. Fauci is and the mainstream media is. And to me, that's completely true, and there are negative health aspects of fear. I say in almost every video that fear weakens your immune system and it has very negative consequences on your body, so does stress. But I've never heard Dr. Fauci talk about that. I've never heard most mainstream media talk about it. In fact, you can almost guarantee that they absolutely don't care. That's a part of science or health that they just seem to not want to talk about. So when a doctor talks about it on Facebook and it goes viral, delete it. Of course, they won't tell you that that was said in the press conference, but I watched it and it was said, and it is true and it is real, and it's something that they don't want to confront, so they censor as opposed to debate. One of the doctors talked about the school year for kids coming up. He used real data, real facts, real statistics, some of which aren't even debated at all because it's using the data that the government and these major institutions give us, and he made his case for why he thinks kids should go to school. He's not alone in that. Thousands upon thousands of doctors agree with him, and even on MSNBC, they were shocked to find out the doctors that they brought on their own program thought that kids should go to school too. Take a look.
Back to school.
I will. My kids are looking forward to it.
Yes. Period. Absolutely.
Absolutely. As much as I can.
Without a hesitation.
Without a hesitation, yes.
I have no concerns about sending my child to school in the fall.
I would let my kids go back to school.
Dr. John Torres, NBC News.
They all said yes.
A doctor at the White Coat Summit also pointed out that the LA Teachers Union's demands for trying to send kids back to school has stuff like defunding the police and ending charter school, which has absolutely nothing to do with health, everything to do with their politics, which are Democrat, but really leaning on socialist and communist. Is it about health or is it about politics? Well, don't ask that question because you might be deleted like these doctors. Once again, that was talked about at the summit. They didn't refute it. They couldn't debate it. They didn't deny that it existed. They just deleted the video and told you that all it was fake cures and false information. Right. Perhaps the most controversial and what they were talking about was this specific doctor, which is going viral on many social medias and they can't stop it. I know they wish they could, but they can't. And she was talking about her personal experience as a doctor and saying hydroxychloroquine along with Zithromax and other medications have provided phenomenal results. That's not my opinion. I can't tell you that. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but that's what she said. I'm just telling you what she said. And we're going to get into some of that in a second. Also at the summit, Dr. Erickson, who also had one of his viral videos deleted earlier this year, was talking about the real negative health consequences of lockdowns. Of course, you can say there's pros and cons, but the media and a lot of these health experts that they love on Facebook and they love on television don't tell you that there's actual real health crises from what's going on. There's suicide rates that are up, there's domestic abuse rates that are up, there's many studies that talk about poor exercise and bad diets are on the rise because of the shutdown. So the point he was making in short is that all they mention is the economic downfall from the pandemic and the response to the virus, which is true, but that's not all. There are real health consequences that come along with it. I've also mentioned how they've had an excess of death in the UK, and out of those 8,000 excess deaths indoors when they had the really hard lockdown at the beginning of the pandemic, a majority of them, about 6,000, had nothing to do with COVID-19. So of course they don't want to study that. They don't want to have a debate with these doctors. They just want to silence them, shut them down, say that everything they said was fake, and expect you to believe it, even though of course it's not true. Since editing this video, they deleted it off of YouTube as well, and it looks like they locked Donald Trump Jr. out of his Twitter account just for sharing it. This is absolutely insane censorship. It's disgusting. Once again, these were just some of the things that I heard and took notes about before they deleted the video. I'm not saying that every single thing that the doctor said was true. I don't know. I'm just telling you, I heard a lot of really interesting stuff and a lot of very factual stuff that I can prove with facts, statistics, data, science, and that are completely 100% true, many of which I just mentioned. They love to censor, they love to silence, they love to point out a very small part and make an opinion about it, but they never tell you the whole picture. They delete that picture and say it never existed. So let's document history correctly before they burn more books. So on that note, I think they were really mad about what that one doctor said about hydroxychloroquine. Interestingly enough, in Newsweek this week, a Yale professor of epidemiology said the key to defeating COVID-19 already exists. We need to start using it, hydroxychloroquine. And that opinion piece was published in Newsweek. My question to Andy Stone or any of these Twitter or Facebook execs is, are you going to delete that Newsweek article? Does Newsweek have to take down all their publications? Does this Yale professor of epidemiology need to step down and delete everything he's ever made? Because according to the article, he has authored over 300 peer-reviewed publications and currently holds senior positions on editorial boards of several leading journals. Is he not an expert because he disagrees with Dr. Fauci? Is he not an expert because he disagrees with CNN? Is that how you guys enforce the website now? I'm not sure. If you listen to the news, you would think that nobody on the planet ever disagrees with Dr. Fauci. His word is the word of God, and any expert epidemiologist and doctor, whether it be frontlines or well-studied person at Yale or Harvard, 100% agrees with him, and disagreeing with him is a mortal sin that will get your YouTube channel deleted. That's the message I get when I listen to them, but I know it's not true because I actually do research, and I read this Newsweek article, Dr. Fauci backed controversial Wuhan lab with US dollars for risky coronavirus research, and in that article, many people disagreed with him, including Tom Inglesby of Johns Hopkins University, Mark Lipsitch of Harvard, and Richard E. Bright of Rutgers. So there's thousands upon thousands of doctors and experts that disagree all the time, which is okay in a normal free society with the First Amendment. But apparently in this new world that Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter want to create, disagreeing with the experts or the television is a mortal sin that can get your video destroyed at any second. One of the things they were mad about was they said you don't need a mask. I guess that's enough to get your video deleted now. Weirdly enough, Dr. Anthony Fauci said that earlier this year in 2020. Take a look.
Now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often, there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course.
And the strangest part to me is that Dr. Anthony Fauci has been in his position since the Reagan era. He's been there for decades. He's been an expert and he's been a leader for literally multiple decades. So despite this being his job for decades, he just figured something out in the last few months that he didn't know in January 2020. Seems a little bit odd to me, but I guess we're supposed to simultaneously believe everything he says and not believe everything he says. If you disagree with the World Health Organization, that's a mortal sin that can get your video deleted. But the World Health Organization has changed their mind back and forth multiple times, including pretty much every month of the pandemic, being way off in their predictions and advice. But that's something that someone else could tell you, because I don't know if I'm qualified to tell you the truth about how not everyone in the science world agrees, and not all of these bureaucratic institutions have an 100% accuracy. Like, for instance, the Lancet Journal had to retract one of their biggest retractions in modern history on hydroxychloroquine. Isn't it weird? Everything revolves around that. All the censorship, all the anger, I guess because maybe President Trump said he likes it, and this doctor said they like it, gotta delete their video, have to shut them down. Then why did the Lancet mess up so bad? Could it possibly be that people with a Democratic skew hate the president so much and have politicized this pandemic so much that they're willing to go against science, mess up constantly just to try to prove them wrong? I would say that's an exaggeration until you see the New York Times and major publications saying, is protesting dangerous? It depends what you protest. And they, along with their epidemiologist friends, try to make the point that protesting for Black Lives Matter and protesting in Portland and Seattle is somehow okay and acceptable, but protesting the lockdown isn't. So I guess viruses now discriminate on your political preferences. Wow, that's interesting. Andrew Cuomo recently got mad at somebody having a music concert, but he doesn't seem to be mad when 2 times, 3 times as many people are in the streets for his politics. Isn't that just bizarre? Recently, Business Insider published an article that said U.S. coronavirus cases are probably 10 times higher than official numbers. More and more research suggests. If there's more cases than we think there are, that means that the mortality rate is even lower than we think they are, which would actually be a good thing, but good news is not allowed. It's only fear, despite what it does to your immune system and body, and if you disagree with them or question them or do a summit at DC, you're at risk of being deleted, silenced, censored, or framed as some sort of maniac. But committing domestic terrorism in major cities will get you the favor of these same people and these same television news networks. A dozen frontline doctors speaking in Washington, D.C., a threat, delete. Domestic terrorists committing literally domestic terrorism, protesters. They could stay. It's an understatement to say these people have their priorities screwed up, but most people are waking up to that. And before I bore you with my objective news reporting and a more accurate video than most news networks can muster up with a budget that's 1,000 times bigger than mine, listen to one of the media's favorite people, Bill Gates, answer questions from CBS about side effects of the vaccine.
The vaccines sound concerning. We looked. After the second dose, at least 80% of participants experienced a systemic side effect, ranging from severe chills to fevers. So, are these vaccines safe?
Well, the FDA, not being pressured, will look hard at that. The FDA is the gold standard of regulators, and their current guidance on this, if they stick with that, is very, very appropriate. And you know, the side effects were not super severe. That is, it didn't cause permanent health problems for the things there. Moderna did have to go with a fairly high dose, and so to get the antibodies. Some of the other vaccines are able to go with lower doses to get responses that are pretty high, including the J&J and the Pfizer. And so there's a lot of characteristics of these vaccines. It's great that we have multiple of them that are
Bill,
going out there. And yes, I think
you know the data
US
better than I do.
government-
But the data showed that everybody with a high dose had a side effect.
Yeah, but some of that is not dramatic, where it's just super painful. But yes, we need to make sure there's not severe side effects. The FDA, I think, will do a good job of that, despite the pressure.
How many doses of the vaccine will we need?
Well, none of the vaccines at this point appear like they'll work with a single dose. That was the hope at the very beginning. Maybe one of them, particularly in the second generation, won't surprise us. We hope just two, although in the elderly, sometimes it takes more. And so making sure we have lots of elderly people in the trial will give us that data.
You've said some more than 7 billion doses. That's what we'll need.
Well, if what you're trying to do.
Well, I'm glad we have experts like him out there. He made me feel a lot better about getting in line for this vaccine. Because that's when this whole lockdown fiasco will end, according to many of their reports and their own statements. Then we can all go back to normal. Isn't that nice?
The vaccine. It is fair to say things won't go back to truly normal until we have a vaccine that we've gotten out to basically the entire world. And so, the best people at the foundation who are all about high volume vaccines, are working with many manufacturers.
Well, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Have a beautiful day. And I have a Patreon, patreon.com/raretalk, where I answer all questions if you'd like. If not, no worries. And my message to the media, to Facebook, to Twitter. First of all, God bless you guys. I appreciate you guys. But also, if you have a huge problem with what these doctors are saying, censoring them actually makes them bigger superstars and people will still see these videos. But why don't you debate them? Why don't you have other doctors and other experts who disagree with them have a conversation and debate with them instead of shutting them down? That would make a lot more people believe you, and it would be a lot more fair to the First Amendment of this country and to medical freedom in this country. It's not a dictatorship and a tyranny where one person gets to decide what everybody else thinks and does. And if you want to treat it that way, expect more and more people to push against the grain. That's my thoughts. Let me know yours. Have a good day. I'll be back with more videos.